It's finally that time of year. The season of every other PokeTuber making their best of the year Pokemon ROM-hack and fangame video. But because I have so much to say and so many projects to talk about, I've decided to split this video into one about ROM-hacks, which you're watching right now, and one about fangames, that'll be arriving a week from this video's upload. So today, I'm going to be taking a look at the top 5 Pokemon ROM-hacks that I played this year. Of course, I'm only going to be including hacks that were either released or received a sizable update in the last 365 days. So you're not going to see something like Gaia or Unbound, even if I played those games this year. But without further ado, let's not waste any more of your precious time, and get right into the hacks. Starting off at number 5, we have Pokemon Team Rocket Edition. Not to be confused with an older hack called Fire Red Rocket Edition. This one is a Spanish hack that received its English translation in March of this year. As you can probably tell by the name, you don't play as a regular Pokemon trainer in this game, who receives a Bulbasaur, Charmander, or Squirtle as their starter. Instead, you begin your story as a mere grunt of Team Rocket, given no choice at all for your starter Pokemon, as you're handed a measly Zubat. What's very interesting about this game is how the story unfolds where your adventure begins at the same time as the game's original protagonists, meaning you'll run into them quite frequently, and have a chance at changing the original story. The main difference between this hack and Fire Red Rocket Edition would be the lack of the stealing mechanic, the ability to take your opponent's Pokemon after winning. Now, that wasn't necessarily an absence that bothered me, especially with this hack featuring Pokemon, moves, and items up to the 8th generation, and a story that takes you through not only Kanto and the Sevii Islands, but many other maps covering unexplored areas of the original region. The only thing I didn't like about this hack was the default overworld style, which I personally find to be pretty bland, but everything else in the game seriously made up for it, which isn't something I'd usually say about any other project. Coming in at number 4, we have Pokemon Emerald Seaglass. Before this game blew up, I had my eyes on it for a couple of months over on the Pokemon ROM-hacking subreddit, and I'll admit, I did have some hype for it. And after playing, I will say that it lived up to that hype as much as it really could. The biggest appeal of Seaglass is the visual charm, attempting to replicate the style of the Game Boy Color era onto Pokemon Emerald. One of my biggest pet peeves with Hoenn and Kanto-based ROM hacks is the creators never changing the overworld look, so this new art style seriously made the game look a lot more enjoyable. Other than the graphics though, Seaglass obviously features an expanded roster of Pokemon, with the first 3 generations and nearly every cross-gen evolution available. While the lack of newer generation Pokemon might disappoint some people, I found the lack of an overwhelming variety to be an absolute plus, since I'm really not a fan of sifting through 30 different encounters on a single route. And of course, all these Pokemon follow you in the overworld and have a new set of following sprites to fit the art style. So yeah, the biggest thing Seaglass has going for it is the art style, and like I said before, I haven't been able to enjoy a lot of enhancement hacks, no matter how interesting its features are, because half the game, which is exploring the overworld, looks the same as it always has. So being able to play through Hoenn with an actually different look was really nice. And from what I've seen, it seems like this isn't the last we'll see of this style, as more and more creators have been trying to adapt it to their ROM hack projects. At number 3 is probably the most visually appealing ROM hack I've ever played. It's one that I enjoyed so much that I even made a short video about it right after I finished the demo, and that hack would be Pokemon Darkfire. Darkfire takes place in the brand new region of Tenjo, where after saving the professor from a rodent infestation, you're given your starter and begin your adventure. The main appeal for me was the attention to detail. Not only does the world look absolutely beautiful, with a mix between Generation 3 and 4 graphics, but every route contrasted the last in an insane way, and every corner of every area had something to collect, a Pokemon or trainer to battle, or something pretty to look at. This made every second of your adventure exciting, and it made you feel like you had to cover every area top to bottom. The overworld detail, combined with the following Pokemon and almost entirely custom soundtrack, made this probably the most fun I've ever had playing through a new region in a ROM hack. But of course, graphics aren't everything. Progression in Darkfire felt very smooth, as I never felt underleveled, but I also didn't feel like I was moving through the game too quickly. The level curve felt almost perfect, as if the developers played through their game 100 times to make sure of that. Another thing that felt almost perfect was the difficulty curve. Battles were challenging enough to keep me engaged, but not too difficult where I was constantly swapping my team for each boss fight. Overall, Darkfire is an incredible experience, and the only thing holding it back from being my number one is the hack currently being just a short demo. But it's definitely a demo worth playing through, and definitely a hack that'll be one of the greatest when it's eventually finished. Coming in at number 2, a ROM hack that certainly took everyone by surprise when it was released. It's not very often you see a hack, especially one of high quality, get released in a completed state. This is Pokemon Scorched Silver, a Johto-based hack that takes place 20 years after the events of Gold and Silver. With that said, you could obviously expect a brand new story that comes with new rivals, new gym leaders, and a brand new evil team. Whenever someone decides to create a new experience in an existing region, the thing I look forward to the most is the changes to existing areas, whether it be the art style or even just the layout. So obviously you can expect my favorite part of this game to be just that. The region of Johto has been given a much needed visual upgrade, with an enhanced Generation 3 tile set that gives many areas a much more colorful look, even when compared to Heart Gold and Soul Silver, at least in my opinion. But not only that, rather than traveling through the Kanto region, you'll have a collection of new islands to explore south of Johto. Compared to every other Johto hack I've played, I think this one does the best at upgrading the region. Outside of graphics, Scorched Silver has a plethora of fun gameplay features. First, there are over 750 available Pokemon to capture, surely leaving you with a very easy way to build your team of favorites. While the game does have an increased level and difficulty curve, it never felt as difficult as many of those hardcore enhancement hacks, and there's even a nurse in every Pokemon Center to help you level up. Overall, Scorched Silver is an incredibly fun ROM hack, and honestly, the way I wish most people handled remaking or enhancing an existing region. But finally, we have the hack that I've certainly talked the most about on my channel, Pokemon Odyssey. And since I've talked about this hack's features so much, I'm going to instead talk about why it belongs at this spot over other hacks. First of all, Odyssey does something that almost no other full package ROM hacks even attempt, and that's create a story without gyms in a completely new region, if you can even call it that. Because to explore this game's world, you don't need to wander around traveling through different cities, but instead venture deep into the earth, exploring various underground stratums that are each very different from each other, in both their look and Pokemon variety. And the Pokemon? They're all incredibly fun to use, with each one having a rework to their stats and move pools, and even a good number of them receiving new regional forms that all look incredibly well made. Odyssey makes strides to give you an incredibly unique Pokemon experience, one that I thought I'd never see on such a fleshed out level in a ROM hack. I seriously believe that Pokemon Odyssey will be able to stand at the top, even above Pokemon Unbound, when it's completed. Now I'm going to be honest, this list, especially compared to my upcoming fan game one, might not look very impressive. But I'm going to be honest, I'm thankful that I'm even able to include all of these games, because it feels like in the last 2 years, most of the hacks we were getting were just copy-paste hacks of Radical Red and Inclement Emerald, with a few very minor changes. Overall, I think this was a good year for the ROM hacking scene, and I'm certainly looking forward to 2025, where I've already caught a glimpse of what kind of new and updated projects we'll get. But anyways, this was my top 5 Pokemon ROM hacks of 2024, so be sure to subscribe to not miss my top 5 fan game video, and future showcase, review, and suggestion videos of Pokemon fan games and ROM hacks. I hope you have a nice rest of your day, and goodbye!